Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. It is Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. I'm your host, John June. And of course, I got my guy here with me, Greg Penniman, aka G Money. Greg, how you feeling today, man?
Doing well. Going into week 10. Very not so excited on the Thursday night game, but definitely excited for this week, for Sunday in general, for week 10. One step closer to people solidifying those seeding positionings now for fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, man. It is an important week. In the NFL, it is actually like we're hitting that time where these games mean a lot more now. This is like seeding. This is about playoff positioning, maybe winning your division. But in the fantasy playoffs or fantasy football, it definitely has those same implications. I mean, word on the street is there's a pretty important matchup in the League of Extraordinary People between, two guys that co-host a podcast together. I'm talking about you and myself. So, and this is a team. We're both 4-5. You are holding down the last playoff spot right now, and I'm looking at the bottom. I'm trying to get up there, man.
Yeah, I mean, your Jets handed me that loss for sure. I'm not even gonna blame the Chargers defense. Like all I needed was like some type of game. Maybe that the Chargers didn't have to be handed. Going against the Chargers defense, they got handled so many points. So, I'm in this position now where I need to get every win possible.
Yeah, man. So, best of luck to you next week. But not this week. Not this week. But yeah, man, like you said, week 10. We got a Thursday night game that we got to break down. So obviously, we are going to jump into that. But first things first, I gotta obviously, make the PSA. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, any of those podcast platforms, just make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. Make sure you leave a rating and review, especially if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. Leave that rate and review. And if you're watching on Twitch, X, formerly known as Twitter, or YouTube, make sure you definitely comment, like, subscribe as well. If you're watching live, jump in the chat. We'd love to chat with you and answer any questions you may have. But without further ado, Greg, we do have a Thursday night game to break down.
Yes, sir.
It's prime time, man. This is what we asked for, man. The best of the best is what we get. The 1-7 Panthers traveled to Chicago to take on the 2-7 Chicago Bears. This game has a 39.5 point total here, where the Chicago Bears are 3.5 point favorites at home here. T-Bag getting the start. No Justin Fields. So, Greg, I ask you, how do you not take the under in this game?
Oh, yeah. I mean, in general, hearing the stat about unders on primetime games have just hit. It's been a lock so far. And just also, the Chicago Bears have played a primetime game. They've been in one of these primetime games, and they play one of their best games of the year. So, I mean, I got to, go with their trend a little bit going. So I'm going to take, the under, the Bears to cover and the Bears to win, even with Tyson Bagent.
Bagent 12. Is that what
Agent
number
12.
he wears?
Oh, Agent 12. Get it. Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch enough of Tyson Bagent to know exactly what jersey number he's wearing these days. But I'm also taking the under. I'm also going to take the Chicago Bears to cover this game. I'm going to take the Bears to win. It's another solid matchup here for Bryce Young. But in good faith, I cannot recommend him as a play.
No, not at all. Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, the only number I want to see is DJ Moore's number, and that's really it. Like, I feel like it's been years since that Thursday night game where he had a career's worth in one half. So I'm hoping that I'm really just wishing Justin Fields gets back, because since this man's left, he really hasn't been getting those monster upside values that he's been getting. The targets have been there, but just has not been getting high yardage numbers.
Yeah, and it is a revenge game for him against the Carolina Panthers, so I would like to see him, have a good game. But I think ultimately I'll probably have him as a wide receiver 3. Like you said, he's still seeing, he's still getting these opportunities. He's just, they're just not converting there. So, continue to throw him out there, and you just wish Justin Fields a very speedy recovery, and hopefully he can get out there and help make this thing a better experience for DJ Moore and DJ Moore fantasy managers. What about the running game in Chicago? Khalil Herbert returning from the injured reserve. Deontay Foreman had 20 carries for 83 yards in his most recent game, so he was clearly the lead back there in that situation. How do you see this backfield breaking down with the potential return of Khalil Herbert? Do you think Foreman's done enough to hold on to that, or is this a backfield you see probably a 3-way split that you want no part of?
I think it'll be more of like a 2 men with the majority of the carries, and then maybe sprinkle in some Roschon Johnson, but Khalil Herbert and Dante Foreman will get the bulk of the carries. I think Dante Foreman has earned at least 10 to 12 carries, especially in this matchup. Carolina's really bad against the run. The Bears will assumably be up in the game. This is a perfect game script for Dante Foreman, and Khalil Herbert would be, I think, used as well. But so I think both of them kind of have RB2 value in this game.
Yeah, it's a good point on the game script here. Carolina's been, really attackable. I mean, they're just a bad defense in general, but teams find no reason to do anything but run the football because they are allowing you to do that repeatedly. They allow the third most PPR points over their last 3 games to the running back position. So great spot for Deontay Foreman, who's also in a revenge game.
There you go.
So on the Carolina side, we're not interested in Bryce Young, although the matchup here is very good for him. Chicago on the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks over the last 3 games. But the wide receiver position also attackable by the Carolina, against Chicago, allowing the 13th most PPR points to the wide receiver position. Adam Thielen in a good spot, had a down week last week. Are you rolling him out there again this week as a wide receiver 1? That he's been basically every week.
Yeah, I think so. I think on the lower side, at the very least, a strong wide receiver 2 with that one upside. I mean, before that last game, he still got 6 targets last game, but before that, we had 3 straight games of double digits. This man's going to get the work, going to get the volume from Bryce Young in this game. I think one game, this is his first bad game outside of week 1, so I think there's no reason to not trust him continue going forward.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was first bad game outside of week 1. He's been more than solid every other week. So I just don't see how you can't continue to roll him out there. I mean, wide receivers have bad weeks all the time. So when you've got one who's, seeing the production that he's seeing, I mean, target share wise, he's over the last 3 weeks, he's about 29%, almost 30% there. So, definitely going to continue to roll him out there. Chuba Hubbard got the bulk of the work last week. Frank Reich spoke about, it being, continuing to be, he'll probably be the quote unquote starter, but he should continue to, to see, 60-40, 50-50 split with Raheem Blackshear, also working in there. Do you have any interest in playing Chuba Hubbard in this game, and how do you rank him potentially?
I don't think I'm going to reach out to start him. I mean, there's been pretty rough year for this Carolina offense as a whole outside of Adam Thielen. And it starts with running the ball for a good team. And it's hard to find, a pretty solid fantasy starter on really bad teams. I would definitely look elsewhere. I feel like he's more of a low in RB3, RB4 weeks most times. So, yeah, I'm not really excited to play him.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Not excited to play him by any means, but some people probably don't have the options, man. I mean, between bye weeks and running back is always a mess every week.
It is.
Outside of like maybe 20 guys that you can definitively say that you want to play. I mean, Chuba Hubbard falls into that range of guys where you're like, well, maybe I want to play him. Like, do you want to play Chuba Hubbard in this matchup against Chicago? I mean, Chicago over their last 3 games, allowing the 19th most or 25th most PPR points to running backs. So that's not very good. Or would you play a guy like Jerome Ford, who's going up against Baltimore, the 27th best matchup for running backs?
I'd still take Jerome Ford, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Jerome Ford is they're seeing about similar volume per se. I mean, Jerome Ford is getting 27 opportunities. I think 27 opportunities in the last game. So Chuba Hubbard, probably like a tick or two below that. The recent weeks, they're both playing in somewhat of a split. They both have a tough matchup. I just feel like it comes down to believing in Cleveland's offense.
Than
Carolina's.
Think so.
Anything else on this game, Greg, before we move on to the bold predictions?
I think the most exciting player I want to play in this game is Cole Kmet. I mean, he's been the main beneficiary of, agent out there. I mean, last 2 games, at least 8 targets. Sorry. 6 for 55 last week, 10 catches, receptions the previous week before, 2 touchdowns on Sunday. So he's really been coming on, and he's definitely a hot target. That should be a must start in this one.
Yeah, I can get behind that one. Carolina not great against the tight end, but again, like we said, teams, it's not hard to get what you want to get done against Carolina. So, if you want to go, if the Bears, want to go out there and get the ball to Cole Kmet, I don't foresee that being an issue for them. Chandler Constantino asking, do y'all do fantasy questions? We most definitely do.
It's my favorite question. It's my favorite question. Yeah, I feel like we get it the most.
Yeah, probably our most asked question. Do y'all do fantasy questions? I mean, we don't do cooking questions. That would be a different podcast. But we definitely take fantasy football questions. Greg, bold prediction for you. What do you got this week? In the betting lines, what's talking to you?
I'll look now, but it definitely has something to do with some Cole Kmet action, and for sure I think Dante Foreman getting a touchdown here. So I'm gonna slide to it now. Dante Foreman anytime is -110, and for receiving, I don't. Do they even have? They probably don't have Cole Kmet's line right now. I don't see it. Crazy.
Yeah, they didn't have much of the receiving lines for the Chicago side. I don't know if that's because weird. They were unsure who the quarterback was going to be. But
yeah, I think that's a good point.
They didn't put much receiving. They didn't put receiving lines out. So I can go ahead and give mine if you want to give some time to get yours. But
sure.
I didn't see anything that I really liked. This game kind of sucks. So anything I take would be on the Bears side. I mean, unless it had to do with Adam. I wanted an Adam Thielen reception prop, but they hadn't posted it yet when I was looking. But I'm going DJ Moore anytime touchdown.
We'll love that.
It's +175.
Yep.
And he was, short, just, 6 inches away from scoring a touchdown just a few weeks ago with Bajent down at the goal line. And again, this Carolina defense is very bad. And so I think there will be an opportunity or opportunities here to get DJ Moore in the end zone. And so that's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I'm just taking the Dante Foreman anytime with the under. I mean, I think that's kind of safe and plus 325. So that's pretty good odds.
That is pretty good.
Yeah, if anything, if any Coco Met line come out, I'll be taking that either separately or additionally.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on to streams of the week. And it seems like there is going to be quite a common theme here this week, Greg, because I feel like you and I are on the same guys, which when we are on the same guys, it usually ends up being good for the listeners.
Yeah, and the options just keep dwindling as we get, especially in these bye weeks. And also, the more data, we start to, the people that are just there, like that you could trust normally, to be probably like, maybe you can't go to them. So it makes lives a little easier.
Yeah, I will start off by saying I did want to go Bryce Young here, but I really stopped myself. I was like, from a numbers perspective, it looks like it makes sense. But then logic has to come in at some point.
Yeah.
And tell yourself, no, like Bryce Young is not a good play, no matter what. I don't care if this is the fourth best matchups for quarterbacks. Like, it's not. Greg, who are you going with that quarterback this week?
Going with Will Levis, man. Going against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's defense, maybe you thought it was scary, but coming into the season, but last couple of weeks they've been getting torched up, especially last week to CJ Stroud. So Will Levis, he's 40% rostered. I think he's in a good spot here where he'll get down the field. He made some really tough throws on the road against Pittsburgh, against a lot of pressure. Tampa Bay, will probably kind of dial that up a little bit as well, but I think he'll have some good matches on the outside, and he'll get it to his people.
Yeah, I definitely like that one. I'm also going. Oh, I didn't even put up the graphic here. I'm slacking today. Not on my A game. But I'm also going with Will Levis as my quarterback stream of the week. And for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, he was obviously very good in his first start in week 8. Was solid in his second start in week 9, and what was a tough matchup against Pittsburgh. Finds himself in a great spot against Tampa Bay, who over their last 3 games have given up the most fantasy points to the quarterback position. And they were still a great matchup even prior to the beating that they received from CJ Stroud. I think the thing is here, though, I think there's more to unlock with Levis too than what we've actually seen, right? Because for someone who's known for his athleticism, making plays with his legs, we haven't really seen that part of his game at the NFL level yet. So I really do like the rookie here to have a solid outing in week 10. And again, what is a great matchup. And I will throw out a bonus here because I just checked. He's 46% rostered. For some reason, I feel like people know that he's a good play, but Josh Dobbs, man, the Pastronaut, like he's got to be, in stream consideration for you. He fits, everything that we want in terms of he's playing in a good offense. I think this offense is, better for him than what he had in Arizona, especially, with James Conner having been out. I think that given the situation here with, Justin Jefferson potentially coming back, not this week, but obviously in a future week, and obviously what he brings with his legs, Josh Dobbs is a great streaming option, and he's got some really good matchups coming up ahead. In terms of, he's got New Orleans this week, not an overly great matchup, but then he's got Denver, then he's got Chicago, who we just talked about. He's got Las Vegas, Cincinnati, Detroit, and then Green Bay to close the year. So, all of those are matchups that don't scare me at all. And then when you add the rushing component that he brings, I think Josh Dobbs is obviously a great streaming choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. Love also Will Levis because, he got that announcement that he's going to be the starter for the rest of the year. Might take some weight off his shoulders as well. Let him just, let it rip it. Like, not that he was not playing, but now he will have even more confidence going the rest of the season. And Baker Mayfield in that same game, he's 51% rostered, but I think that could be a little higher for this week.
Yeah, Baker not going to get a ton of respect because people, for some reason, don't like Baker.
He's been solid this year.
Yeah, no, he most definitely has.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Greg, let's move on to the tight end position, man. And go ahead, you give your PSA, man.
Man, Jon Smith, man. This man's going against Arizona, 37% rostered. Another week where, the team that throws to the tight end the most as far as, target share, total targets, they are Atlanta Falcons. He's on this team. He got 6 targets last week, 5 for 100 and a touchdown. I mean, what more does this man have to do? He's, another game where he's got at least 5 receptions. I think the count is up to like 5 this year as well. He's been pretty solid for a guy that's rostered 37% of leagues, and the guy next to him, who he's arguably outperforming, he's rostered in 90% of leagues. So, this man needs to be in lineups, and going against Arizona, it doesn't really matter. I think the matchup for a team like Atlanta, because they all they do is target the tight end position, just not all the time the Kyle Pitts.
Yeah, it's funny because I am also going with Jon Smith as my tight end stream of the week. And all right, Greg, you got me. I'm here now. Here we are. If Kyle Pitts is rostered in 94% of leagues, then Jon Smith should be rostered in 100% of leagues, considering he's the higher scoring tight end on his team. I will say, though, Kyle Pitts has at least 5 targets in every game. I'm pretty sure it's every game this season.
I'm sure it's there, yeah, because the tight end, the Falcons tight end, has been amazing.
But Jon Smith doesn't get the 5 targets.
He probably gets the higher quality, like the higher than the goal line near the red zone.
He's getting the higher quality targets. Scoring 60-yard rush, 60-yard touchdown on a screen, getting a jet sweep on the goal line, Yeah, that's what Jon Smith gets. And I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Absolutely. Arizona's defense is terrible. Kyler Murray's back, which should mean more points for Arizona, which means more points Atlanta has to score. I'm willing to take the shot here on Jon Smith, but I'm peeking at Kyle Pitts.
My other option was Hunter Henry. He's 40% roster. He's going against Indy. So good, solid matchup there. Coming off a solid week, 4 for 39 and a touchdown. So we got target 7 times. So he's another deep option. Also
going to throw out, since we're on the topic, Cade Otton.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Leads the team. He ran, he's playing. Basically, he's on the field. He's always on the field. He had a team leading 30% target share last week. His targets have crept up every single week. If you are the Dallas Goedert manager, you're hurting for a tight end, I think any of these guys who we just named would be a solid option for you. I think Cade Otton probably has the best rest of season potential.
Yeah, I agree. His third straight game with at least 6 targets last week. He's actually getting the ball on a consistent basis. And then, he's tied to Baker. That's probably why he's getting the disrespect.
Yeah, basically, if you're not Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, everyone thinks that you suck playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's Rachaad White included, because I remember in September nobody wanted Rachaad White.
It's true.
And, yeah, here we are. Anyway, Greg, defensive stream of the week this week. What do you got?
For the defensive stream of the week, I have Chicago actually going tomorrow night, going against Carolina. 28% rostered. They made trades to even improve their D-line, even though they're kind of in rebuilding mode, but I guess they're still trying to, make that defense better. So they're definitely going to get some sacks on Carolina. They're going to get some turnovers. Carolina had an abysmal week. Indy didn't, they're a horrible defense, and, Carolina made them look real good last week. So, I like Chicago here.
That's really funny that you say that, because you just referred to Indy as a horrible defense, and they are my defensive stream of the week, which is why I had that smirk while you were talking about Chicago there. But Indianapolis's defense has not been great. They're favored here by 1.5 points. Neutral game location in Germany here. Pats don't have much of an offense out there.
They don't.
I like this Colts defense to get after the Patriots, but I will also offer a second, and it's the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yes.
I don't know how they're 1.5 point underdogs at home against the Jets on Sunday night. I don't know if I told you this, Greg, and we haven't talked about this game, and we will talk about it tomorrow. I said before I watched the Raiders play the Giants, and I said the Jets could beat the Chargers tonight by like 30 points, which obviously we all know did not happen.
Right.
But I was like, there is no way they're beating this Raiders team.
Yeah, you said it on Monday too, even before the game started. Yeah.
There's no way they beat that Raiders team.
Yeah. I mean, I would have gave y'all a chance if y'all showed out against the Chargers, but yeah, you're right. I don't see it happening.
It's like a 0% chance.
The matchup is not good. The D-line, Max Crosby is going to have like 10 sacks.
If I hadn't already used the Raiders last week against the Giants in my survival pool, I would have picked them this week. Because there's no way. No way. Anyway, anything else, Greg, about streams of the week before we move on to matchups?
No.
All right. Discussing all the early matchups. The first matchup we're going to cover today, or I guess the second one outside of Thursday Night Football, but the first of the early games that we're going to cover. Sunday 9:30, last one of the year that we get this one, or a game this early. But the Indianapolis Colts, the 4-5 Indianapolis Colts, travel to Germany to take on the 2-7 New England Patriots, where this game has a 43.5 point total. Indianapolis Colts are 1.5 point favorites. I'm going to take the under here. I'm going to take the Indianapolis Colts to cover. I'll also take the Indianapolis Colts to win this game. Greg, where are you at with this one?
Yeah, I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take the Colts to cover and the Colts to win.
Anybody on the New England side outside of Ramondre Stevenson that you want to play? Demario Douglas probably in a halfway decent spot, but
yeah, just those two names. Ramondre Stevenson being an RB2. Demario Douglas, I think, is a flex conversation. He's just going to get the looks, I think.
I like Ramondre a little bit better in this spot. A little bit. And I've been probably the biggest Ramondre detractor. But this game is interesting. And it's interesting in the fact that it could be an ugly game, but Ramondre could still, get there by way of like receptions if he falls into the end zone as well. So I do like Ramondre to be like potential like a probably higher end RB2 in PPR leagues.
I could get with that. Yeah.
And then Demario Douglas probably like a flex like wide receiver 3. I mean, there's not a lot of upside in his role, right? Like you're hoping he catches 5, 6, 7 passes, gets
for 60 yards. Yeah.
60, 70 yards. Like that's what your hope is. On the Indianapolis side, Jonathan Taylor, got to treat him as an RB1 in this matchup, I think. I mean, New England's been bad defensively. I mean, we're talking 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks, 8th most PPR points to running backs, 3rd most PPR points to wide receivers, and 18th most PPR points to tight ends just over the last 3 weeks. And they're not playing like they haven't played world beaters either, in these spots. But
JT's usage is all the way back. I think 75% of the snaps last week. So that's a great number.
Yeah, you definitely that's what you like to see. This is the weeks that you were banking on when you took JT, when you took him. Michael Pittman Jr., I think with Josh Downs being limited, potentially out, like I think, that pretty much gives Michael Pittman Jr. a ceiling that, we hadn't really seen all year. What are your thoughts there with, his value this week?
Yeah, absolutely. With Gardner Minshew, it was already elevated, but if Josh Downs is going to be limited, I think that puts him almost in that wide receiver 1 category, upside for sure. But yeah, I'm gonna rank him as a very strong wide receiver 2, like wide receiver 15, 14.
Yeah, and then Josh Downs, I mean, if he does go, are you playing him? We saw him basically try to give it a go last Sunday and then, pulled himself out of the game and did not return. Are you willing to go there with him again this week?
tough knowing that he could re-injure himself. I would, yeah, that'd be tough, especially for a 9:30 a.m. game. You're not going to get those injury reports for other players that you might want to play until like 11:30. I think I probably hold off.
Yeah, I'm just kind of gonna I'm just not gonna count on Downs this week, man. Especially, it's one thing to play him when the first time
Yeah,
when he's dealing with this, but until I start getting some, maybe watch him play this game and finish the game, or maybe get some, full practices in, I'm not really gonna go there with Downs.
yeah.
What about Zach Moss? Are you playing him?
I think he's worth the look as a RB3, a solid RB3. Probably last week. Again, you had mentioned Indy's defense kind of carried the way as well. So I do want to see it again where he probably have to play himself out my lineup a little bit for this running back position.
Definitely fair. Anything else on this game before we move on to the next one?
No.
All right, next up, we got the 5-3 San Francisco 49ers coming off 3 straight losses. We're once 5-0. Traveling to Jacksonville to take on the 6-2 Jacksonville Jaguars. Both teams coming off a bye here. The total in this game is 45.5, with the San Francisco 49ers being 3-point favorites on the road. Greg, where are you going with this matchup?
I'm going to take the under. It's tough. Jacksonville's one of the, if not the hottest team in the league right now. But I can't imagine, San Fran losing 4 straight, though. So I'm going to take San Fran to cover and San Fran to win. Just can't imagine them losing 4 straight. Like, that's crazy.
Like, that meme from or that GIF from Always Sunny, where the dude, I think Charlie, has got all the things on the board, and he's trying to he's got all these connected, and he's just like that's got to be Kyle Shanahan during the bye week after these 3 straight losses, man. Like, he had to go crazy trying to figure out a way to get a win. Like, it's been about a month since the San Francisco 49ers have won a football game. Like, that's got to drive Kyle Shanahan nuts.
Yeah, and it's tough because it's been about a month and a half since Jacksonville's lost a game. So that's where it's like
the movable objects meets the unstoppable force here.
Yeah, yo, it's tough, man.
It is tough.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville, wins this game.
No, would not be surprised if Jacksonville wins this game, but I am going to take the under. I am going to take San Fran to cover. I will take San Fran to win, but it will be look, man, for all the unders, this will be a hell of a game.
Yeah, I agree.
Most definitely. On the fantasy side, I mean, is there a player you don't want to play? I mean, I guess let's start on the San Fran side because it's a lot more concentrated over there. Brock Purdy, he's in a great spot as a QB1 potentially here. I mean, Jacksonville over their last 3 games allows the 11th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Obviously, we know what the infrastructure of this offense allows. But are you putting Purdy out there as a quarterback one?
Yeah, given the matchup, I think and also just the back and forth nature this might happen. I think Purdy's in that QB1 conversation. As long as with all his weapons, they're all in good spots here.
Yeah, I mean, CMC, obviously you're going to play him regardless of the matchup, but it definitely helps when Jacksonville Jaguars allow definitely helps when Jacksonville allows the 5th most PPR points to the running back position. Brandon Ayuk, again, also in a great spot as well. Jacksonville allows the 10th most PPR points to the wide receiver position. And then Deebo Samuel potentially making his way back as well into the lineup. I mean, how do you go into this week ranking Deebo?
I'll say, low end wide receiver 2. I think it's kind of been, we'll kind of see how this impacts the other guys. Like, I think Ayuk is more safe, but George Kittle, I think it might impact a little more. So, yeah, I think wide receiver 2 for Samuel. Ayuk more of a stronger wide receiver 2, and George Kittle more of a low end tight end 1.
Yeah, I see it the same way. I mean, I think Samuel affects Kittle more than he affects Ayuk. I mean, Ayuk is like the wide receiver one.
Yeah.
I mean, any other touches that Debo Samuel is getting, I mean, outside of those manufactured touches, like he's not going to earn the targets that Ayuk is earning. Kittle is where I would have the concern here because you got two things going in against Kittle here is the return of Debo Samuel, but also Jacksonville has been very good against tight ends. I mean, they allow the 27th most PPR points to the tight end position, so not particularly a great spot for Kittle. So yeah, those two things give me concern, but you're not really benching him in redraft leagues. It's probably more of just like a DFS thing there, but on the Jacksonville side, I mean, it's really hard not to like these Jacksonville pieces too. I mean, San Francisco, they've been giving it up to quarterbacks and wide receivers. Over the last 3 weeks, they allow the 14th most points to quarterbacks, third most to the wide receiver position, but they also allow 16th most PPR points to running backs and 21st most PPR points to the tight end position. Now, they did trade for Chase Young over, prior to their or during their bye week actually. So, have to see, remains to be seen what impact he has on that defense as a whole. But how do you rank? I guess we'll start with the passing game. Trevor Lawrence, do you view him as a QB1? And how do you, I guess, rank the wide receivers between Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley?
Yeah, I think just how this team has been playing, you got to have Trevor Lawrence as a QB1, especially with some of the bye weeks. Mahomes, as well as other players as well, top level quarterbacks. So, yeah, I think Lawrence is in there, Purdy's in there, ETN, you got to start him up. And then for the receivers, I think Kirk is still the preferred receiver in this offense as a wide receiver too, and Calvin Ridley being, that wide receiver, low wide receiver 2 flex conversation until he shows me otherwise.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have Kirk a little bit higher as a wide receiver 1. But like low end wide receiver 2, like probably high end wide receiver 2, low end wide receiver 1.
Okay. Yeah.
Calvin Ridley is the interesting one to me in this game because this feels like, and this is purely just feelings here, but it feels like he's in a nice, like there's a blind spot here for Calvin Ridley, and he's somebody who can potentially he's got, just as good a matchup here as Christian Kirk. Obviously the target distribution has been Kirk, leaning Kirk's favor. But actually over their last 3 games, Calvin Ridley has the higher target share, 24% to Kirk's 19%. The only thing there is, Kirk's been a lot more efficient with his targets where Calvin Ridley hasn't been. But like I said, we've seen not Jacksonville, but San Fran get beat up at the receiver position, specifically the outside receiver. I mean, we just think about the big game that Addison had on that Monday Night Football against the Niners. Then obviously, the Browns were playing with a backup quarterback there, but going into it, it looked like a halfway decent matchup there for Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore. So I sneakily like Calvin Ridley to be a wide receiver 2 here that potentially could finish with wide receiver 1 day.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he did do very well against Pittsburgh, 6 for 83, got targeted 10 times. So he's starting to get the looks again. Kirk's been showing a little more consistency this year, but yeah, I think they're both playable for sure.
And then Evan Ingram, is he going to be a tight end 1 this week?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this next game here. We've got the 5-4 New Orleans Saints traveling to Minnesota to take on the now we're winless, but now 5-4 Minnesota Vikings. This game has a 41-point total where the New Orleans Saints are 2.5-point favorites. I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to take Minnesota to cover. I'm going to take Minnesota to win.
Yeah, I'm with you on all 3. I think if the Saints were home, I'd go them, but Minnesota being home it's both dome teams. So give me that over as well. Minnesota to cover, Minnesota to win.
It's got to be very uncomfortable betting on Derek Carr.
betting on him to succeed, or like
backing a Derek Carr team against the spread. It's got to be very hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to bet on him again, like on him in general. Like you don't never know what you're gonna get out of a Saints game and just Derek Carr as well, because you're also got Taysom Hill action going on in every Saints game.
Every single Saints game. I mean, on the Minnesota side, how do you view Josh Dobbs in this game? I know we talked about him a little bit at the top, but the matchup against New Orleans is not particularly great. New Orleans has historically been pretty good against the quarterback position, but over their last 3 games, they're 17th. So not middle of the road here. So how do you view Dobbs in this matchup?
Yeah, I think Minnesota's offense has proved that in tough matchups and in tough spots, they can make things happen. Obviously, they've against all odds, they created points every game. So I think Josh Dobbs is at worst a high in QB2. I think QB 15 definitely streaming category in this matchup, because he's with more time, he's going to be able to get more comfortable in his offense, and I think that's only bodes for better things for him in this offense, especially his receivers. Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, man. like you said, I like Dobbs this week. I mean, I talked about him as potentially being a streaming option. I like his weapons and TJ Hawkinson and Jordan Addison. I also let me see where I'm at on Alexander Madison. Cam Akers tore his Achilles. He's out for the year. So Madison is going to end up in a spot here where he gets the bulk of the workload. Probably going to be an RB3 for me. Ty Chandler is interesting. Somebody I think that should be picked up. People were rostering Cam Akers. Ty Chandler's also now steps up into the RB2 role, and he's looked pretty good and flashes explosiveness when he's had the opportunity. So I think somebody you should definitely pay attention to.
Yeah, and I think this has even given more incentive to kind of not speed up Justin Jefferson's timeline, but not like shut him down. And I think he's getting close. So that's good news.
Most definitely. Now moving on to the New Orleans side, and I did get this stat here from Action Network. They posted this on their Twitter, formerly Twitter, now X, on November 5th. So that was Sunday at 5:43 p.m.
Yep.
Derek Carr against the spread when favored by 3 or more points is 8, 25, and 2.
So this is a lock. This is a lock. Yeah.
And in his last 15 games, he's won 13-1.
That's numbers I like to hear.
Technically, this isn't a lock because he's not favored by 3 or more here. Favored by 2.5.
Okay.
But I still like Minnesota anyway.
Yeah.
So speaking of Derek Carr against Minnesota, Minnesota's been much better defensively than they were to start the year. 23rd against quarterbacks over the last 3 matchups. Derek Carr's probably going to be more like a QB2 for me this week, but how do you view him?
Yeah, I think I'd rather start Josh Dobbs in this matchup than Derek Carr, especially because his upside is capped with Taysom Hill, especially when they get down in that red zone. Like all those touchdowns are funneling his way or Kamar's way or someone else's.
1000% agree. I'd much rather have Josh Dobbs in this game than Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Chris Olave was able to get there last week with a red zone touchdown, but other than that, his stat line was extremely underwhelming. Any faith that he could turn it around in this matchup?
I mean, he's still getting the looks. Had 8 targets last week. Hasn't had lower than 5 since like week 4 or 5. I think he's still kind of in that wide receiver 2 conversation.
And then Alvin Kamara, probably going to be an RB1. Had his,
Yes, sir.
his worst outing of the season last week, but I think you forgive him for that.
Yeah.
The real question I think people want to know: Taysom Hill, is he here? Is he a thing now? Is he a tight end one?
Yeah, he's here to stay. In my opinion, I mean, I'm always more of a very Taysom Hill advocate. Definitely, just watching the games, like when they get in the red zone, like, oh, it's Taysom Hill time, like it's a lock. So that he's going to get the opportunity. So I'm willing to bank on that, getting high quality opportunities as a tight end, because he can run it for one, he can pass it for one, he can throw it for one. So touchdowns, I mean.
You think Sean Payton just like looks across, in like awe, just like, look at what I created,
Yeah, I'm glad they kept that. It was definitely interesting that they, with new coaching staff and everything, they still no difference.
None.
Yeah.
Anything else on this game, Greg, that you want to add before we move on?
No.
Let's move on to this 3-5 Tennessee Titans traveling to Tampa Bay, take on the 3-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game has a 38.5 point total, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 1.5 point favorites at home here. Greg, where are you going with this matchup?
Yeah, I feel like this is a smash for the over here. And then I'm gonna take Tampa to cover and Tampa to win.
Yeah, that total did seem kind of low, and I was trying to check. I'm like, let me make sure there's no weather to worry about in this game, and it looks pretty clean from a weather perspective. So I also am going to take the over here. I'm also going to take Tampa Bay to cover. I will take Tampa Bay to win. I do like the Tampa Bay side a decent amount in this game. Baker Mayfield, I think, is a QB1 here. Rashad White, I think you have to treat him as an RB1. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, I think they're going to do that thing all year where, they're wide receiver twos with wide receiver one upside. One of them probably going to finish higher than the other. Do you lean any particular guy in this matchup?
In general, I guess like full season, I'm always lean Mike Evans a little bit this year because Baker loves throwing that deep ball. They feel that they're connected on that with each other. So one play could like really make his day, and then everything else will just add on top of Mike Evans. I think I'm chasing that bigger number. I think for Mike Evans.
Agreed there. Kate Otten, who we talked about, it's got to be a tight end streaming option here for you. I mean, Tennessee, not terrible against the tight end position over their last 3 games, 25th most PPR points to the position, but Kate Otten's role is one that I think you got to continue to trot him out there, or at least take advantage of those opportunities that he's getting.
Yeah.
On the Tennessee side, we both like Will Levis here. I guess let's just play the exercise. We already talked about you would play Will Levis. We both agreed play Will Levis over Bryce Young despite the matchup. Would you play Will Levis over Geno Smith against Washington?
That one is tough. I think I would just because it's Washington. I think I stick with Geno.
Yeah, I'm there too. Will Levis or Gardner Minshew? Gardner Minshew plays New England.
I'm not trusting what can possibly happen overseas, so I'm gonna stick with Will Levis.
Will Levis or Derek Carr against Minnesota?
I'm gonna take Will Levis. Derek Carr has been okay, but yeah, I'm gonna take Will Levis.
Ooh, gonna get a little wild and crazy here. Will Levis or Lamar Jackson versus Cleveland?
Lamar is ugly. It can be ugly. So that's tough. Divisional game. I think I'm gonna take Will Levis. Because the divisional game against Pittsburgh was really ugly. This is another divisional game where I think is gonna be ugly. I think I would. The upside is higher for Will Levis.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree there. I mean, the problem is like Lamar could come out, run for 100 yards and a touchdown, and then like, 16 fantasy points. Wow, like,
yeah.
Never happened, But I don't think I have the stones to do that. I think I will still go Lamar.
Yeah, I think if I had him on my rosters too, I still wouldn't do it. But I wouldn't be surprised, if Will Levis finishes with a higher output.
No, I would not be
Yeah.
surprised. Not be
Yeah.
surprised. Will Levis or Taylor Heineke against Arizona?
I think give me Heineke. Doesn't mean this is tough because I'm like, am I taking these guys over Lamar? All these guys now, like it just doesn't. It's weird. It's weird.
So you would take Levis over Lamar, but you wouldn't take Heineke over Lamar, but you would take Heineke over Levis. No, I in some kind of weird way, I think I understand the logic there. I will take Levis over Heineke though.
Okay.
Yeah, Heineke's like a fun thing, but then you realize he's like literally just as bad as Desmond Ridder.
with Kyler Murray being there, I think that will just heighten this game a little bit, make it a little bit crazy.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, I forgot where we are now. Oh, we're talking about the Tampa Bay game. We're talking about Will Levis.
Tennessee side, yeah.
Tennessee side. DeAndre Hopkins, is he a wide receiver one for you this week, Greg?
He's lone wide receiver one. I think wide receiver. I'll rank him as like a 13 or 14, but yeah, I think he has wide receiver one upside.
Yeah, Tampa Bay allows the second most PPR points to the wide receiver position.
Yeah,
he will definitely be a low end wide receiver, low end wide receiver one. I almost forgot which way I was saying that. Like a lower tier wide receiver one, probably like wide receiver 10 to 13. Derrick Henry matchup is tough, but are you willing to throw him out there? I mean, Tampa Bay over their last 3 games, the 31st most PPR points to the running back position.
Yeah, I think he's RB2. I wouldn't be surprised if Tajay Spears has a day here, like a flex day, just getting receptions, and he's still out on the field. His utilization is still pretty solid for a backup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still going to roll Derrick Henry out there. I'll probably rank him as an RB2, but would not be surprised if he finishes an RB1, just simply because of the fact that this game we both like it to go over. Tends to be could be a little exciting. And there should be a lot of opportunities near the goal line here for Derrick Henry to at least punch one in. So definitely we'll continue to roll him out there. Any interest in any of these auxiliary pass catching options here for the Tennessee Titans? I mean, Chigo Okonkwo has probably, the third best matchup of the group here. Tampa Bay allows the 4th most fantasy points to the tight end position over the last 3 games. And then also not to mention, Kyle Phillips looked halfway decent last week, as well as Nick Westbrook-Akine has an opportunity here with Treylon Burks potentially missing time with a concussion here. So any of those guys interest you in this matchup as an auxiliary option to DeAndre Hopkins?
Maybe Westbrook-Akine, but I'm not going excited. I'm not going jumping for any of the other pieces. Not trusting Chigo, or I'll have to see it from these guys a little more consistently to really add them and start them in flex conversation.
Chigo's so enticing, man, in this matchup. He really is. The matchup's nice, but like you said, we haven't really seen much.
Nothing.
The
man hasn't had over 35 yards receiving in one game. Yeah.
But didn't he have like 6 targets last week?
He had 4. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yep. He had 4. Damn. Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe I'll play him in DFS or something. Anything else on this game, Greg, before we move on?
No.
All right, moving on to this exciting game here. The 5-3 Cleveland Browns.
We'll somehow make it be exciting. It will be in some way.
I want to believe you, Greg.
You can see Myles Garrett against Lamar,
It's not a matchup I really want to see as a Lamar Jackson manager. Like, can we have me chasing him around instead? Like, I'll sign up for that for the fantasy points alone, The The 5-3 Cleveland Browns traveled to Baltimore to take on a 7-2 Baltimore Ravens. This game has a 37.5-point total, where the Baltimore Ravens are 6-point favorites. Greg, where are you going with this matchup?
I'm gonna take the under. I'm gonna take Cleveland to cover, but I'll take Baltimore to win. I mean, this is arguably like the best D line versus best O line. Like, this is the true line of scrimmage game right here. Really, whoever wins that is going to win this game. I mean, you can say it for every game, but like this is like unstoppable object versus a movable force for sure.
Most definitely, man. And both these defenses are very good.
Yeah.
I'm taking the under here, taking Baltimore to cover, Baltimore to win. Like we talked about with Lamar, he is in a tough spot here. Cleveland allows the 25th most PPR or fantasy points to the quarterback position. Obviously, Lamar can get there with his legs, but I think this is one of those weeks where if you're building your lineup, you are kind of whatever you typically are banking on from Lamar, just like cut it in half or like 3/4 or something, man. And just try to get some volatility from like a wide receiver, in your flex spot or something, man. How do you treat the running back position? We saw it be an even split last week. Keaton Mitchell, which looked like a lot of his, production might have come because of the score and the garbage time, but had as many first half carries as the other two Ravens running backs. So it seems like he might be more involved than we might be thinking here. But how do you treat this running back split?
So I think Gus is still the guy, especially around the goal line. He's going to be my preferred option at running back to be a strong RB2, maybe a little downgrade because of the matchup. So mid-tier RB2. I think Keaton Mitchell is kind of the exciting big play type guy, and just in general, like hopefully he's earning more playoff time. I mean, not playoff time, more playing time. So I think he's kind of entering that flex conversation. It's just tough to do it for this matchup again because it is Cleveland. So yeah, I think I'm not willing to. If I had to play one of them, I'm only playing Gus in this matchup. But for the rest of the season, I think Gus and Keaton Mitchell will be playable. Keaton Mitchell definitely, I think high upside. He's going to be, best case scenario is the Devon A chain. Basically, that's what it is.
Yeah, I think Keaton Mitchell 100% needs to be rostered. Like you said, it could be like a Devon Achane situation that we get going on here. I think we got to remember too, Mitchell was on IR to start the season. He just recently came back. And the fact that he's, undrafted free agent who's, basically assimilating himself into the offense like this early into the season upon, his return has got to, signal something to us that like, hey, the Ravens see this guy as a player and somebody that we should at least roster, but I'm not playing him. I think the only person you could comfortably play is a Gus Edwards. Like I need to see it. Multiple games in a row.
Yeah.
So that being said, Mark Andrews, definitely a tight end one. I think he's the one that you probably have the most confidence in even Lamar included. Because he plays tight end. But are you playing Zay Flowers this week? And I know you roster Zay Flowers in our League of Extraordinary People. So, as your opponent this week, I'm very interested in your answer.
Yeah, I mean, not a lot of other options as far as receivers. I think getting favorable matchups and just in general, like he's been kind of the top guy as far as targets and everything. So I think you still have to throw him out there until he can show you not his consistency that he was showing earlier in the season.
Yeah, definitely hear you on that one. I think you probably have to roll him out there just because of lack of options, but don't expect a ton of production from him this week either.
Yeah.
On the Cleveland side, Amari Cooper, Jerome Ford. Is that it?
Yeah. David Njoku.
That's what I was thinking. The third name I was going to bring up.
So, but that's it. Yeah. Deshaun did play better. last week. I'm keeping an eye on him, kind of, hopefully taking a turn for his Browns career, really.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see if that's something that he's if he's now healthy, maybe that had something to do with this year. I don't know what happened last year, but this year maybe the health is something to definitely do with that. Anything else in this game, Greg, before we move on?
No.
Any interest in Kareem Hunt?
No.
Okay. Moving on to the next one. The 4-4 Houston Texans traveling to Cincinnati to take on the 5-3 Cincinnati Bengals, where this game has a 47.5-point total. And the Cincinnati Bengals are 6.5-point favorites.
It's the game of the weekend.
This is the game of the weekend, and here it is at 1 p.m. Not on prime time, because we have to watch Agent versus Young. We have to watch Zach Wilson versus Hayden O'Connell.
Yep.
We've got to watch
the Broncos and Bills.
The Broncos and the Bills. And, 9:30 in the morning. We'll get Mac Jones versus Gardner Minshew. So, great standalone games, NFL. Fantastic. But yeah, this one, 1 o'clock, where no one's going to see it except those that live in the Houston or Ohio area.
Yeah. Crazy.
Anyway, I am going to take the over here. I must have been on something when I did this.
fresh off the Stroud game, probably.
I guess I'm going over. I'm going Houston to cover, Houston to win. That's what I picked.
Wow. Yeah, I got the over. I got Houston to cover as well, but I'm gonna take Cincinnati to win. It's gonna be close. It's gonna be close. Like Houston battling for playoff games right now. That's crazy. Like CJ Stroud is really that much of a difference. So, but yeah, I'm gonna still at home. I'm gonna give Cincinnati the edge. You saw what they were able to do. They got the whole Tiger situation there going on. They Cincinnati at home seems like they're playing pretty well. 3-1 at home.
I'm just still trying to figure out, I really picked Houston to cover, Houston to win this game. I mean, that's great.
Hey, that's Stroud, man. That's Stroud. It's baller.
So, I mean, this is a matchup for the week, man. I mean, both these quarterbacks going to be QB1s in fantasy this week, I would imagine. Jamar Chase did not practice today with dealing with the back injury, so something to monitor. T. Higgins would definitely catapulted to wide receiver 1 category. Even though he's a high-end wide receiver 2, I think even if Chase does play, I think Tyler Boyd probably steps in as like a wide receiver 3. Would step into a wide receiver 2 role if Jamar Chase has to sit out. On the Houston side, and then Joe Mixon obviously going to be an RB1.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
On the Houston side, CJ Stroud, obviously quarterback 1, Dalton Schultz. Are you a believer buying in? Are you 100% bought in on Dalton Schultz, Greg?
I gotta be, I guess. Yeah. No Kelsey this week. No Goddard, even though he's injured as well. Yeah, you gotta put Schultz in your lineups.
Okay. And then Tank Dell and Nico Collins, man. I mean,
fire him up, man.
Fire
him up. Noah Brown too. I think Noah Brown has some intrigue as well in this game, especially if Robert Woods is not going.
Yeah, that's the only concern I have with the Noah Brown thing is what does Robert Woods' role potential availability have on his impact?
Yeah.
And then Devin Singletary, is he the back to play in Houston now?
Yes, he is. As an RB2, yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this game, Greg, before we move on to the last one?
Just hope they put Tony Romo in this game. They put the A squad on this game. So
yeah, I will have to find a way to, negotiate my ability to watch this game because I will be in Atlanta with family this weekend. So I have to get away, find a way to watch this game, man. Let's move on to this next game, man. The last one we're going to cover today in the 1 p.m., for the early slate of games. The 3-5 Green Bay Packers traveling to Pittsburgh to take on the 5-3 Pittsburgh Steelers. This game has a 37.5 point total, where the Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-point favorites at home here. Greg, where are you going with this game?
Give me the under. Give me Pittsburgh to cover and Pittsburgh to win. This is a perfect Pittsburgh game right here. Perfect. Like, great matchup for them. They're going to destroy this Jordan Love.
Yeah, I'm also taking the under, also taking Pittsburgh to cover, also taking Pittsburgh to win. I mean, this game is This game is classic, like historic franchises, but then like there's like not that's like where maybe Pittsburgh and like that's where it ends.
I mean, Aaron Jones is, got a lot of work last week, so I'm happy that he's here, hopefully.
Most definitely, and that's why he's probably the only player you have faith in on the Packers side this week.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
Is there a receiver you want to take with you, Greg?
No. Christian Watson has ample opportunity to take this, whatever. They just hasn't found a connection with Jordan Love yet. I need to see it for him to be in my lineups.
But who has had some opportunities? Jaden Reed. Luke Musgrave has had some opportunities as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 16th against wide receivers, 24th against tight ends.
Luke Musgrave is probably the only, player I'm looking at. It's tough, man. Jordan Love has been, after that first couple weeks, has been bad. On the road in Pittsburgh, I don't know. I do
think he can potentially get better. Like I said a couple weeks ago, I think Aaron Jones being back helps this offense as a whole. Could potentially help uplift it there. But yeah, it's definitely not great. Going to be tough sledding for the Green Bay pieces here. On the Pittsburgh side, Deontay Johnson,
wide receiver 2 season.
I was gonna say, man, does he feel like a wide receiver 1? I mean, Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him getting that. The looks are there, though, man. He's been really. Kenny Pickett's been finding that connection. You will hope that he kind of gets that back with Pickens again a little bit. He's been a little more boom or bust lately. So
31% target share the last 3 weeks for Deontay Johnson.
Love that. Yeah,
that's like elite wide receiver 1 type numbers there.
Yep.
I think I have a hard time not putting him down as a top 12 wide receiver in PPR leagues.
Still Kenny Pickett, though. That's why. Maybe because some of those throws he missing Pickens. I mean, I guess he's finding Deontay. Like
Pickens throws are much farther down the field.
That's why. I guess that's
why. Pickens has a 44% catch rate over the last 3 weeks, while Deontay Johnson's closer to 70% there. So I will take Deontay Johnson in his safe role.
Yep.
Pickens, boomer bust, wide receiver 3, I think is where it's at. Like, if he booms, you're really happy. And if he doesn't get 2 feet down in the end zone, you're probably going to be upset.
Yeah, I just wish Pickett just needs to be better. That's all.
Pickett's not great.
It's not great.
But Pickens also needs to do better work as well. And Matt Canada just needs to find another job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Matt Canada, we've been talking about having a third person here with us. So maybe you could come join the Fantasy Football Diagnostics podcast. We could break down the Steelers offense and how great it is now that you're not calling plays anymore. Greg, anything else? Oh, the running backs, Najee Harris, RB.
Yeah. RB2. Jaylen Warren, I think Jaylen Warren's got RB2 potential also in this one as well, just with his receiving game. He's been pretty solid.
All right.
Yeah.
I agree with all of that there. And, we will close this one out, man. Obviously, we will be back tomorrow to break down the remaining slate of games. Also, week. And believe it or not, we'll play some Get Money where we're tied 4-4. It's crazy. So this is where the rubber meets the road here. One of us is gonna go in.
I'm like the 49ers. They're like the Jaguars, pretty much. It's crazy.
Oh man. Well, hopefully I continue being the Jaguars and my upward trajectory, and the 49ers in your downward trajectory, and maybe that doesn't happen in real life, but it happens right here.
That's what I'm saying. You took it in real life. You didn't take that in real life. So I mean,
No,
maybe that's what's the preview.
Was you in the lab like Kyle Shanahan? On the whiteboard? Nah, you wasn't. That's why I didn't take it.
Trying to fix my season-long teams, man.
Well, all right, y'all. Have a good one. We will catch y'all tomorrow, 3 p.m. live right here, same spot. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.
Yeah.